Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Lifting. Today, we will be speaking about the meanings of messages, and more specifically, some more recent instances with not only people who have sent us messages, but the general public. But first, we have our usual affirmation and blessing. To the naysayers of messages and signs, to the ones whom sight has directed itself aside from truth of surrounding, and to the ones who claim to see all in front of them, you are not always wrong for not seeing, but you are not always right for seeing. You are you, but the messages seen by you may be for and or from a lane not your own. Stay in your lane and know and see only the messages and synchronicities meant for you. All is not yours to claim. Thank you. And that was a channeling from my grandmother, Vivian Sainovich. Now, I want to also, before we get into the show, I want to tell everyone here, this is take 2 of this show. We had it all filmed and ready to go, ready to be edited this week. And this is the week of 10/12/21. And the messages that were put into this were this was actually written further back into August. So I want to make that clear from when we read this now. This is take 2 because the fact that our usual laptop that this is always filmed on got severely attacked by outside negative forces and was completely fried. And the show that was normally going to be edited got taken with it with at least 6 others. So so we're having to film again. There were 2 Q&As in there. We probably will never film again because the scripts are not available. So I'm sorry, everybody that sent in questions. Those are gone for good. I am so very sorry. So I don't know what was said in those. They were completely done. I want to put that out there. So I will go into what was said here. Thankfully, I had this script all written out and saved somewhere else. I will start off by saying that yes, it is extremely well known that when a message or a synchronicity takes place, that it may not just mean the one thing that is said, nor could it just be for the one receiving it. However, it has come to my attention within the last few weeks, as well as sporadic messages throughout the years, that some of our viewers seem to think and feel that particular messages are for them. Now, I can honestly state that this is simply not true. I will give a couple of examples of each type of concept, and you, as the general public, can decide for yourself. Number 1, back at the end of 2017, we spoke of a time storm that was hitting in November of that year and would taper off at the beginning of 2018. At that time, I made mention of a section of my book, From the Fall to the Lifting, where I spoke about an incident from when I was in Lincoln. This here is the excerpt from that book. The second occurrence with this future woman in this fashion several years later was when I entered my 20s. I was standing in the same spot in the back bedroom when the same jump in time took place. This time, however, I was in a different house altogether. It was a 2-floor blue house with a sliding glass door leading to a yard and a front picture window looking out onto a street. I had seen this house in visions before, but had never physically been there before. I remember feelings of dread and sadness as I looked around at an empty house. There was no furniture, no appliances, nothing save a lonely calendar on the wall with scribbles written on it. I walked over to it and saw a glimpse of a date, November 2017. Then I was brought back. The above excerpt is referring to an incident whereas I time traveled to an alternate timeline where I was standing in an empty house because I had just broken up with or divorced someone. Not necessarily her or anything like that. This was an alternate timeline. I want to make that clear. This alternate timeline never occurred because Joanna and I are still together. Again, this was more than likely, could have been anyone within an alternate timeline. Assuming that timeline was even about her or an alternate alternate self altogether, meaning picking up on a parallel universe version. It was being back then. It was being back then trying to plant a seed. It was a being, excuse me. It was a being back then trying to plant a seed, fear and doubt in my future relationship stability, being planted into me into a very real physical alternate timeline. I was transported to this other timeline, and the idea of that was planted into me. I want to make sure. Sorry for all the stammering. There was interruptions during the original recording. Same thing is occurring now. At the time, these beings were also attempting to get me to cheat on my future spouse by telling me not to cheat. It was done by basically reverse coercion or reverse psychology. The thought was never in my head until they said it. You see, and these were beings I trusted at that particular moment in time. Basically, trying to create the negative timeline by assuring the opposing seed was planted firmly within my brain. Needless to say, it did not work, and that timeline in that lonely house was averted. This was an incident where the dark side of the force was making an extreme attempt at overachieving its goals and agendas for me. This incident had only to do with me and no other person. Yet someone sent us a message shortly thereafter that clearly stated that that house was one that he used to live in, and that timeline that I happened to stumble upon was his. Folks, this is an extreme ego response, nothing more. But I wanted to give you a glimpse into what I myself have experienced. This time storm shard is now gone, never again to resurface. This was somebody who sent this email describing what their place looked like, and they were basically letting themselves getting sucked into this particular scenario. And I want to say with absolute certainty, this had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with this individual at all. It was with myself and me. That was it. So example 2. This is more of a recent one, or at least at the time that I chose to write this script. This had to do with a very recent episode of Conspiracy Sector that Aubrey and myself did while he and his wife Mariah were here with me and Joanna back in June of 2021. Several messages came through on the ghost box that pertained to me, Aubrey, Joanna, and a friend of ours. No sooner that I posted that video that I got a private message from a person believing that these messages were about her and her life. I will show you the message, but I will not give the person's name. Even though I'm reading from it right now, I will flash it on the screen right now so people can see this screenshot. This person stated, "Hi, just watched video. Spirits seem to know I've seen Lucifer. Can you contact me, please? The hot one is the worst, etc. Thanks." The context will only make sense. You'll watch the Conspiracy Sector episode number 7, The Saging of America. And you will also see throughout that there were sporadic, different EVPs in there. It is only 18 minutes long. Needless to say, those comments were for me alone. The "You've seen Lucifer" comment was referring to when Joanna and I and myself from years before encountered the real Lucifer on several occasions. Back when we went to Salem, Massachusetts. We encountered that specific version of Lucifer, I should say, or that shard thereof. That's what that was referring to. The comment, "the hot one is the worst," was a warning by someone informing me of a female imposter entity that was posing as one of the many hot galactic women that I encounter on a weekly basis. To even the time of this recording, which was in August, I am not too sure of whom the warning was referring to, but I will ferret it out. You can be rest assured of that. I've been trying to ferret it out ever since I wrote this script. I still cannot find this one, so I just let it drop after a while. These were examples of people that thought this was about them. They read too much into it and they thought it was about them. And this is slightly frustrating on my part because I know for certain these were about myself and about Joanna and our friends and family, or situations referring to that. Now, for a couple of real examples of what is more for both myself, family, friends, and other people as a synchronicity or personal message with them in mind as more of a benevolent source creator inspired event. And there are a lot of these too, folks. Number one, my grandmother and I were driving along, heading to the store. We both saw a billboard with the words, "I'm sorry," written on it in what used to be bright colors, yellows, purples, and reds. It had obviously been there for some time, possibly a year or two, and the colors and text were a bit faded with a bit of peeling damage at the upper left-hand corner of the sign. This was obviously put up by someone apologizing to someone else for something that they had done, but it struck a chord with me since my grandmother and I had just been fighting just prior to heading to the store. You see, this was a different route to the store because of some road construction. We had to take a tour and ended up passing a sign on this trip. It was old and weathered, like our arguing, because I was also being told that it came from an older past life of sorts. One of peeling skin and one of fading color. That's how I describe it. We were two Native American Indians that scalped one another, and this translated to us scalping each other with words. The color the faded color represented this lifetime, but the color faded amidst the age shadow of the past and the bitterness of words that were within the present moment. Even though this message was intended strictly for someone else entirely, it still applied to my grandmother and I at the same time. I also want to say this particular download was given to myself by a well-known psychic in the Omaha, Nebraska area by the name of Tamar. She has now since passed on, and her family has gotten rid of all of her notes and anything pertaining to her because they thought she was crazy. I want to put this out there that this person existed at all, and this was the person that literally gave me the reading at the time that gave me that past life reading and that specific message I just wrote about. There is also another here, number two. Another example is when my grandfather is around or trying to give me a message, a warning, or show me a synchronicity of some kind. This type of sign has always been around us for years. Even in the moments just prior to me getting hit by the car, I got out of my car, only to step onto a large pile of pennies. This was showing me that he was around protecting me for what happened next, which was getting into the accident, getting hit by the car. Other people also have this very same type of message type from their passed on loved ones, as well as from good and benevolent elemental beings, such as good gnomes, fairies, and the like. They will usually leave money of all kinds for people that they like or people that have helped them in some way, shape, or form, usually taking it from someone that they do not like. An example of this is when we went to Globe, Arizona, to do a lecture at our publicist's building. Sorry, folks, there is some interference here. As well as clear the building of any and all bad juju. I found some elementals in the basement that were having problems with the local mining corporation and some galactics that were backing the mining corporation. The ICC had allotted copper mining rights to a few galactic groups and never bothered to ask the local Native American tribes people, nor did they bother to ask if any Agarthans or elementals objected to it, or possibly owned the land long before the ICC got there to stake their claim. When I got the nefarious galactics to walk away, leaving the space open for more of the elemental groups and Agarthan groups to flourish, the elementals thanked me by leaving $40 on the ground right at my feet as Joanna and I went to walk up the street from our publicist's building. The Agarthan groups there also said that they would tell the Native American tribes that as well. They said that they would do this under the guise of spirits, but you get the idea. Not that I approve of that tactic, but the tribes people had called out to the spirits of the earth to help, which happened to be several Agarthan tribes people with high technology. And yes, this is actually still going on, folks. There was an example made of this particular type of thing in the show Stargate SG-1, where they encountered some Native Americans on another planet where these aliens were acting as guides. And they encouraged those aliens not to act as some kind of guides or spooky messengers in the background. And they got them to walk around with them as equals after that. They would show up as birds and whatnot. Let me see here. Okay. There are a couple other things I do want to add in here because we added to this in the original recording. And I know this needs to get out. This falls under what I just spoke about birds and bird type messages. One of which was also with my grandmother on that same day with the sign. This is something I actually forgot to mention in the original recording. Whereas I saw two hawks sitting on top of that very sign with their arm around each other like this, where the wings were around each other. And it was they were like hugging each other like this, and one was kind of slumped towards the other one. That was a legitimate synchronicity, along with that sign somebody was saying, basically forgive and forget, I'm sorry. That's essentially what was being said. That was a legitimate one. Another legitimate one are ones like that alien group in Stargate SG-1, where they were taking the forms of different animals, like forest people. On the day we originally recorded this, there was a raven that was sitting on the roof over here, basically telling us not to forget these examples. So what I'm mentioning again is the don't mind wipe me. Okay, sorry folks, this is what's going on at the moment. I did this during the original too. Whereas the forest people and other elementals will indeed take the form of different birds, different animals. Odin also does this when he's sending messengers in, like ravens. I found out our friend Ryan, when he went to Europe, had two ravens sitting on the wings of the plane. That's not necessarily possible at the height that this plane was at. It was at 20 to 30,000 feet, folks. Not possible for an animal to sit on the wing that high. So like a crow or like a raven. That was proof enough for me that that was some sort of protection that was around him that he asked for. And he believed it was Odin. I believe it was Odin. Benevolent Odin, I should say. The forest people do this, or at least the elder forest people do this. And they like to use deer. They like to use other sort of animals. They'll walk through a neighborhood as an animal messenger. They'll also look around like they're patrolling. We saw a deer going through my mother's neighborhood one time, looking around like this. And that was the forest people looking around. And they were either utilizing the animal to look through with the animal's permission and nature's permission, or it was them themselves that had shapeshifted. Other elementals do this as well. They will shapeshift into animals. Now, there are also a variety of like other animals that can come forward that fall under this category, but under birds themselves. This is where a negative one was in. This is what I described in the last recording. There was this is when we had to deal with Simeon, and what happened in the house in Lincoln. There was a dream, and this was also in the book, From the Fall to the Lifting. Whereas I put that in Simeon's chapter. And what took place was, it was a dream, whereas my mother, I saw the band around her that was her basically her sacrum chakra, or her root chakra, had been grayed. And I saw Simeon coming through the wall of the house and basically smack into her, basically taking his energy and putting it into that chakra space, basically acting like he was reinfusing it. What he was actually doing was he himself made that deadened. that chakra not work properly. He'd stifled it himself and came in kind of like the fireman who was the arsonist to go put out the fire. They started going in to put his own codes into my mother at the time through her spine. And this ended up destabilizing more until she figured out he had added something later on. And this, of course, was also happening to me. I found out this happened earlier in life. I'm not going to go into that right now, but there was something very similar that had taken place with me, some of which was his fault too. This was pre-accident, but it was leading up to the time that I had the accident, had the near-death experience, and had more of those codes put in me. I will not go completely more into that, but that is for a different show at a different time. But what had taken place, the point I'm making with that one is, what had taken place when I woke up the next morning and went into the living room where as this dream had taken place, where I'd seen him come through the wall. There was a hawk that had landed right by the window, by the banister, and was screeching at us through the window. This was actually a benevolent source that was trying to give us a message. We thought we had associated it with Simeon himself, saying, oh, he's the hawk messenger, he's the benevolent hawk messenger. And we would always see this, the signs of the hawk over and over again. What nature was trying to do was actually, it was not Simeon using it. It was nature trying to warn us about him, completely about him, and it was not him himself. So that I want to make clear. If you are associating these signs with a particular guide in your life, please do not do this. You have to be kind of impartial, saying, oh, yes, I can see this as a benevolent synchronicity, but do not associate it with a particular being. Usually hawks and birds will come in and then warn us about things. It's like when we were in Kill Devil Hills at the beach. There was a raven or a crow that was on top of one of the docks that had a roof on it. And there was a reptilian that had been harassing us. And this particular bird was going at us really loudly. I knew that was a warning because that being was around harming us. So I had to get rid of that reptilian that was around. Then the bird flew away. But that was an obvious warning that it was from benevolence. Another one was when we were in a Walmart parking lot, and I'd had this dream, and you've heard me mention this a couple times on Interstellar Council, but it belongs in this subset. Where I'd had this dream where this female soldier was looking at me through a cracked door, and I was trying to conduct a session on a computer in this room, whereas this female soldier was trying to pry through, and I saw this eye looking at me. That was essentially a remote viewer and or a jinn. What took place when I woke up is I kept seeing this female soldier around us in the here and now, out in the open, but transparent. When we went through this Walmart parking lot, this being was following me. There was yet again a raven on top of a light post that was going hey at me, and we knew at that point that this being was dark, and I took care of it. And then, of course, the raven flew away. These are things that have been happening quite a bit. With birds in particular, and messages like that. I had to re-add all of that in. One more thing I do want to add, this was in another video that I had originally had planned on posting at the end of this episode. And this is something that's also very, very crucial right now. And since I remember what I said, I can repeat it. This is about the 1111 confirmations that are out there. Folks, I have to make something very, very clear on this. It's about the 1111, the 222, 333, 444s that are around, and people are always going, oh my God, this is a synchronicity. Oh my God, this is a synchronicity. Oh my God, this is a synchronicity. And yes, can good beings use this? Absolutely, because people use this terminology and use this and use these types of synchronicities. Also, there are good beings that pose as known angelic names that will come through, like Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, all of those. and they will come through to give a message in a guise that people find more appealing to them. Instead of like the Ligurians, they do this, they're in a frog form or in some other form that people might find spooky. What I'm getting at is these types of synchronicities, folks, are usually false because they are blocking you from finding the real synchronicity, very much like Simeon always let us believe and encourage the belief that he was that hawk synchronicity when he was not. He was the exact polar opposite that was being warned about. These number synchronicities will always get in the way of you paying attention to the real ones. Like Aubrey mentioned in another conspiracy sector episode, whereas he knew his father and grandfather were giving him synchronicities about different John Deere tractors. If you want to go watch that, that's in the Synchronicity or Not episode of Conspiracy Sector, where he explains that a little more in depth. What I'm getting at is that was a true one. These number codes get in the way, where people are seeing all these numbers, but what is the synchronicity that you're missing because you were paying attention to those? What is it distracting you from? Just like there are some alien groups that will try to keep you out of danger by getting you by whispering in your ear telepathically. Don't go down that dark alley. Don't turn left. Don't turn right. There are negative beings that will encourage you to go down that dark alley and find out what is. So why are you so curious about that dark alley where you could get mugged? And this happens also in Sedona when my mother went there and heard that she felt that she had to leave the area before dark. Yeah, there are some malicious cryptids that live in that area. People think it's all love and light because it's Sedona. Man, no. She was actually hearing in her head, leave before sundown. And there was a little bat that kept fluttering around, Bell Rock inside the cathedral opening. Whereas where this bat kept dive bombing. That was an actual elemental message. Get out of here before sundown. That is something I didn't mention in the original recording. That was actually very important to put in there, along with this 1111. The 1111, 2222, 333, and 444s. That's artificial intelligence, folks. That is AI flashing those numbers in front of you, and they get you to look at it. Just like also, it's trying to couple a real synchronicity with that number synchronicity. This one last example I will give you. Any reads that I do where something awesome has occurred or we've taken care of something, I will look down and see it says 1111 on there, or 1122, or 444 if it's 4:44 in the evening or something like that, or 333. I've seen them all. What this AI is trying to do and what these darker beings are trying to do is attempting to take what you've just experienced as a real binding synchronicity, or a real, I don't want to say binding, that's the wrong choice of words, a real clarified, validated synchronicity, and couple it with what they are trying to put through. So people always associate those rings of numbers with something that is awesome. Like the 1111 coding, what's the 1111 encoding exactly? And it's always associated with people getting DNA upgrades. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm being told to talk about. Again, this is what I did in my little recording. Folks, what are they upgrading exactly? Now, this is Elena actually putting this out there like she did before when she spoke to us privately. What exactly are these codings upgrading or updating? Yes, you are getting codes. You are getting from the sun. You're getting them from all the energies that are around. You're getting updates just by running into things positive and negative. You're learning from them. You're gaining experience, new perspectives, new perceptions. But this 1111 coding, what is that exactly uploading to you? If anybody wants to tell me, please put it in the comments, because the 1111 encoding, what is it encoding in your genes exactly? And yes, I know me and Viking always talk about the codexes that we were generating from the compression that is taking place right now. Yes, there's a positive aspect to some of those negative things that are taking place. Just like negativity always will, get you to learn from it as you go along, and you generate the codexes from that point on. But, this is an 1111 coding upgrade. Upgrading what? I know it's supposed to be upgrading the DNA to the 12 strands of DNA and upgrading your chakras. I get it. But why would you trust any upgrades you get and accept any upgrades you get from some spooky, incoherent numbers that flash in front of you?
Or the fact that's the only way you get it.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's the only way you get it.
So
yeah.
I mean, when you look at things like this again, with adding to the conversation about the synchronicities of the numbers, again, first and foremost, to say this: there are things like that that happen that will help push along someone in their spiritual journey. They'll recognize it, they see a synchronicity, they're not sure what's going on, they become curious, they learn a little bit more about it. Good.
Very good. It's all good.
All great. The problem becomes that what we have seen with a lot of different things is where experiences will start in a certain way to help push people along in an exploration in the spirituality. And then there becomes a twist to it. How can I get now people almost to become a little bit obsessive compulsive about it, about making sure they see these numbers? Then a spin will occur to almost do a have and have nots. If you're not seeing it, well, I'm getting much better at things than you are because I'm seeing it, thus I must be getting it, and you're not seeing it, thus you know. That's the corruption of the actual material.
Yes.
The synchronicities, those types of synchronicities really aren't how necessarily this all occurs, but if they can get you to believe it, then they can cause certain divisions. And there's something that we've said for many, many, many years, the only thing constant is change. So the goal is in people's spirituality is that they actually, you know what, I've done nothing but listen to this particular person for 2 years. I haven't missed a show. I haven't done whatever. And, but now I'm feeling like I want to listen to that person, or now I'm feeling I want to learn a little bit more about that.
And it's a starting point.
It's a starting point. So you have to do some soul searching if you tend to get only into one. Now, I refer to that as cul-de-sacking. You've cul-de-sac in a certain experience. Does that necessarily mean something's wrong with you? No, you can cul-de-sac and sail there all the rest of your life. You can if you want to. I'm not saying you can't. But if it is coming across in any way that that's the be-all catch-all, that's what you should be going for. That is where things always occur. That blah, blah, blah. The only way to cut a pie is that way. Then there tends to be an issue of now having you now have a current belief system that maybe can keep you from expanding if that is your desire. Yes. So it's what we're more talking about is these things that can become in your way in an interference way. Although
doesn't mean you don't start off from that point.
Correct.
I did.
And I am not going to say, because there is truth. Some people like a belief system that they're in. They want to die with that belief system that they're in. It's okay, because we all learn and grow at our own rate. I think from our perspective, though, is that, again, we've said it a lot of times, we're really just starting to grow a lot in this area. And currently in the human's lifetime, current present moment on this planet, no one's going to know it all. There's so much more still to learn. And so if your journey of exploration is now to continue, grow, you have to be aware of those things that can accidentally cul-de-sac you for a while. And then you decide whether or not you want to move. So the reason we're talking specifically about the numbers is that is a pretty good one, where people then become obsessed, and they even get upset if they don't, know when to either look at a computer or their watch and see the numbers. Then they get upset. Then they start thinking, what's wrong with me? Then they start doing that. And then that's kind of the destructive
If it doesn't
side.
Show up, they get upset.
Right. Yeah. They get upset. And they're thinking, what am I doing wrong? Did I not get those codes? Did I not get those upgrades? Am I spiritually failing? And that's intentional, because there is a little bit of AI interference in some of this that is going to try to get you hooked to then keep you from growing, because it's going to put you potentially in this other cycle. So latching on to things that are going to start an exploration all positive. You just have to be aware. We try to help people be aware of the potential pitfalls. If you're, again, if in this lifetime your goal is to continually expand, this is a pitfall that could help you potentially stay in a cul-de-sac. However, I am not judging anybody who wants to truly explore something in a cul-de-sac, because they could explore that all their lives and then, choose, other explorations later on in growth. So I'm not judging. It's not about us trying to judge. It's about us trying to let everybody know a little bit more, so that if that's not what your goal is, that you can kind of look for it. Now, this goes along with the messaging aspect of when we talk about messages that are meant for all and messages that are meant for maybe some alone. Some of the things that we've talked about throughout the years are messages to everybody, simple sayings and simple things that apply to every single person on this planet. One of them is deny the known and manifest differently. Deny the known and manifest differently. So a lot of what we talk about actually applies to everyone, to relook at how do I bring in messaging currently? Is it actually for my highest good, however I'm bringing it in? And then again, like what we're saying about these number signs, what are some of the things to sit back and really discern? Okay, and so we've spent a lot of time over the past few years talking about that area. So you can, again, if your goal is to continually kind of expand and learn more in this lifetime, we're going to tell you a little bit about where some of the stagnations can occur. It's kind of important during this current present moment, because right now, because of everything that's gone on in the past year and a half, there is a great attempt to keep people from rising in that area. It's a huge attempt. They want people now focused very strongly on, as we say, co-creating for someone else's benefit and not their own. So we kind of dusted off some of our conversation of the past to include it here, because it's so important. One of the first things we always say, again, if you happen to have sight that, and again, and his grandmother was trying to cover a lot of topics in her affirmation and blessing, is that you cannot always trust your sight as being a discerning factor in things. You can certainly have things that are not for your highest good showing up in a beautiful package. Oftentimes what will happen with all kinds of people who are giving out information will be really pretty good for a little bit, because the goal is to hook you. And then you believe the messenger. You've decided that the messenger is always correct and always either benevolent, being it's the person you're channeling that you're seeing, or this particular guide in your life, or someone that you're listening to who's channeling somebody else. And so you have given so much now belief that this person can do no harm and is always correct. You now stop discerning the messages that are coming through, because you just believe
that person is always right.
That is a strategy that's constantly been used over and over and over again. We even say that about ourselves. You should not be carte blanchely putting all of what comes out of our mouth is 100% factually accurate without whatever. You should never do that. You should never say whatever I say or what Chris says or what anyone says is 100%. What you have to do is you have to take the information that's coming through, and you must discern whether or not you feel that it is good for you or not good for you at this current present moment. And so again, we talk about those types of skills of how, this particular things on the website. One of the confounding issues with this is that we've always said this space here is called the heart chakra space, but it's called the heart chakra space because the heart happens to be in the same area. It's an energy center. And what tends to happen is that information that feels right to you kind of pulls you toward it, versus a little bit lower, you'll get, if information doesn't feel good for you, you'll tend to get a knot in your belly. You'll kind of want to even bend over. It just makes you a little bit sick. There is a confounding issue to those two in general topics, which are very, very true. One of them happens to be, if you've put a truth in your mind that you so badly want it to be the truth, that you will look for anything that can be what you consider a synchronicity to it.
Yes.
You happen to do that. And at that moment, your will to find it pulls you towards that information. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that information is actually that, but you have such a strong desire to have synchronicity to something you have already decided is the truth, whether it is the truth or not. But you have already made that decision that you're going to accept it as your truth, that you will potentially bring in what I guess I would, if we're going to go that it's not, the information really isn't the ultimate of information, but you will bring in what we call false synchronicities, because you're making a connection and your belief is pulling you towards that information. This is actually how cul-de-sacking actually happens, where a person can get into it and they want this belief system to be the ultimate, or whatever their reasons are. And so then they're finding synchronicities or making a connection that may or may not be there, and make themselves feel like it must be the way. So this actually does happen. So a lot of what you have to do with messaging is really try hard to more just be neutral and open yourself up to just knowing more, versus the ultimate of. And that's where people seem to also get cul-de-sac thinking that there is the ultimate of information within this particular lifetime, which it is not true.
Is not, yeah.
You're not. We're still exploring. There's so much more that we will be learning, and if there isn't. But if you can be neutral in a sense, and then just say, I'm open to more understanding, versus saying this is the understanding, you tend to do better. You tend to be able then to open yourself up to other pieces of information. And again, another saying we say that should be expected, since the only, the only thing out there is change, right? Mm-hmm. The only constant really is change, is that, again, the truth is the truth until a new truth comes along. And within our lives, new truths in general do come along. Unless you're in the area of exploration of something that seems to cul-de-sac you, then you're in a truth that you just don't want to potentially give up this lifetime. And again, no judgment, okay. But if you're trying not to do that, understand that this is how it works. So there are, again, messaging sometimes in certain shows like which we do, that we actually do try, and people do come in to give a more broader message that people can apply to their lives. Mm-hmm. This is when people will tend to write back and say things like, I really needed to hear that right now. Okay. Or, but this was perfect timing. Or, so being in tune with what will help people in general type of messaging. Now, that's what we try to focus on. We're looking for a broader message sometimes. Another thing that's happening during this time frame, okay, and again, you have to understand there is such an effort to get you to not discern. There is such an effort to keep growth from occurring, that there is going to be more what appears to be on the surface messaging being put out there. So there really are beings that are going to try to be prophet-like, that are going to be try to get certain messaging out and channelings out. They're not just going to necessarily do it to just one person. They're going to, it's going to be
a lot of people.
It's going to be this very broad, but again, you have to then take the information and really sit with it to discern how does it make you feel. And forget who's saying it. Just how does it make you feel? Does it feel right? Or does it be like, no, I don't want this at all. And that's how you're going to have to do it. So again, the synchronicity of having multiple people say the same thing. I'm not saying they're not downloading the information.
But it doesn't always mean corroboration. It could mean the same sources giving them the
Right.
information.
And again, I wish I could say that all humans who are channelers have gotten to the point where they completely discern and only bring through 100% benevolence. We're not there yet. No one on this earth, and this should be a clue, we've said this before, no one walking this planet has that level of skill. If they say they do, they're the first ones you need to be weary
Suspicious
of.
about.
And again, not that they're not trying.
And not that that somebody isn't trying to build confidence in that area, but that's not what we're saying. It's
No, we're
they're
just
not
going to
about that.
saying that they may have adopted some sort of what we would call a false truth, that belief system that there is a ceiling, a true ceiling, and I've hit the truest of ceilings, and thus, and so, but there isn't a ceiling. And so, but this is happened, and it doesn't, again, I'm not saying these are people doing it intentionally. It's just something for you to really think about and bring in, because this is always about the responsibility of you taking in information and then deciding. There is also a pattern that has occurred over all of time in general that most people have gotten information. They have see, okay, and get information. They see and hear and get information. They get direct downloads and get information, okay, out. Normally, because again, we read from left to right, if you're in this country, and it's written down, and it's this linear conversation that's occurring, be it in your sight and hearing, be it in the downloads. A story like this is being told, and this is how you're getting information in. And again, that is the same methodology that those of somebody who's not very highest good is going to deliver information. So what's changing? What's changing now is that we are growing to the fact that we're moving from a linear way of thinking to a quantum-based way of thinking. So instead of things necessarily being on a piece of paper flat and like this, I kind of liken it to the atom. If you're the center of an atom and the electrons and everything's going around you like this, then there's a huge expanse of how information can reach you in your energetic fields, and you can bring it in. Mm-hmm. So the way now that a lot of information is trying to come to people is in a quantum way, mm-hmm. where one person, may say something to you over here in just a little bit of a conversation. Somebody else says something to you over here. You happen to notice something on TV over there. You happen to hear something on the radio over there. But for some reason, all of these bits and pieces, maybe somehow you realize interlocking in a thought process you were having on a certain subject matter. Mm-hmm. That is how information comes quantumly. Even when somebody says, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about this, you just added to what I was thinking about. Probably not a mistake. Probably, again, where instead of a full sentence and a full paragraph is coming to you, it's coming into you with bits and pieces. Now, I will say this happens to be my current belief system, that it seems to me logically that if you are able to start really paying attention to your surrounding and what's going on, looking for some of these connections, then right now, since we're learning how to do that, it could really be more beneficial to you in a way, again, of then discerning it and seeing, does it really fit for you? meaning we're meant to learn to deal in this world as a good thing in a quantum way. And so being awake, alert, meaning things like this. Oh, I was thinking about this. I really am unsure. Oh, there's a bird out there squawking to me right now. That's interesting. The bird never sits there, never looks at me. And but how did that bird make you feel when you were sitting there? You know, do you see what I mean? It's kind of like this, you know, instead of a linear way of information, it's going to come bits and pieces from all kinds of ways. This has been happening a lot to us recently, especially when dealing with different guides or different I don't want to call everybody guides, beings and people that are coming in to speak or to bring information. But there's an extra kernel of something. There's an extra kernel here. There's an extra kernel there. And then we realized between all of them, they were talking about something totally else, but they weren't doing it in the linear way. They're just dropping a breadcrumb here, or they're hoping that we in a quantum way can pick up this information. And I think messaging that way to everyone is going to start to be done more and more by benevolence, because
it's getting more and more by benevolence.
Because you know, we're kind of, you know, a lot of people who deal with some of these entities, not all the higher level, but let's say some of the ones that are the slaves or whatever, they're not that smart, you know. So this is a really high, a little bit higher level skill that is hard, I think, for them to participate. Now, some of the let's say, of course, more experienced, the ones that aren't the slaves. Now, I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying in general, it slips by them. So they don't necessarily even know bits and pieces of messaging are heading your way that may be potentially there for you and your highest good to put it together. So just being aware that we are starting to receive information differently than we have before, and being open to figuring that out and receiving it in a certain way and looking at potential connections in a neutral way. Like I said, don't be so hard looking for something that what you're creating is a false synchronicity yourself. Be neutral to the information and discern how it really feels to you. And is there something saying there is a connection? I've always doubted it until I can't doubt it anymore. And not to delay, because I'm better at it now. It comes together much more quickly. But, you know, in the beginning, I think there is a good thing about being cautious, you know, about that, because I never wanted to create all these false synchronicities from myself.
Yeah, exactly. Your mind can also play tricks on you and create a bunch of false synchronicities that you then project back out there. Then they come back at you, and then you think it's the synchronicity as well. I've run into that. And one thing that is being pushed into my head at the moment, this is something that was said on the previous recording. This has to do with the whole QAnon thing. And I will be very brief on this, because this tends to get the wrong kind of attention. But, and some would say that if you get the wrong kind of attention, you must be seeing something right. Wrong. Sometimes it's somebody trying to perpetuate the lie, where they would oppose if I said something, you know, QAnon related. The other side comes in, tries to oppose, tries to mind wipe. They're trying to perpetuate that the other side is not them. And I'm going to say this very briefly. QAnon is a regurgitation of the cabal forces going into a different flag or a different symbol. With that said, what people need to stop doing is name associating. And I'm getting an earring, even I'm getting a ring in my ear even saying this. Stop calling yourself an Anon. I've heard people say, well, I'm an Anon too. Yeah, I'm an Anon and I'm an Anon. Why? Why do you keep doing this? This makes no sense. You are a person. You are your own synchronistic and sovereign person. Do not name associate with something you barely know anything about. I know what you're syncing it up to is you're syncing it up with the values you think QAnon stands for. like where we go one, where we go all. Perfect. Or we're all one. Perfect. But don't say, well, I'm an Anon. Well, I'm an Anon. No, you're not. You're a person that believes we're all one. So this is what I wanted to bring up, and I'm not trying to insult. I'm even getting interference talking about it. I'm not trying to insult anybody that we know that associates with any of these things, from 11/11 to QAnon. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just saying, please do not associate your name or your synchronicities with these particular things.
It sets you up a little bit, because if you say I'm an Anon, then you're going to agree with the tenets of the Anon.
Yeah.
And so what tends to happen is, again, as we were saying, if an infiltration begins, then you feel so loyal to being the Anon, and you've already assumed that it's going to be all good, that you now, whether you feel you should, you shouldn't, tend then to still push an agenda. You're no longer discerning the information. You've now identified as something. And so we've always said information will come through great until it's time to start changing it for someone else. And so information then will start being skewed to either distract all of the people, or to start now generating energies that actually aren't for you but will help someone else. So it's best not to do any of these things.
Yes.
Again, this is where the whole thing we were saying, discern the message, not the messenger. So QAnon is a messenger. Being an Anon says, I identify strongly that this messenger knows what they're doing. And what we're just actually saying is that I wouldn't do that, because the tactics that are used are to infiltrate and turn. And then people are so stuck within it that they follow it blindly. And a great example of that, again, is the political party systems, where, there was an affiliation in ours right now between mainly Democrats, Republicans, but there are others out there that identify. And God forbid the platform begins to change, which some have drastically changed,
Yes.
but you've identified so much of being of one party.
Democratic, Republican, Independent, Green, it doesn't matter. You've
now done that to the point where you are following the platform, whether it's really for your highest good or not. So this is what we're actually trying to say, and that's the pitfall of potentially doing it. It's hard for people to believe that that is the strategy that is used, but it is the strategy that's been used for thousands of years. It still works, so it's still being used. And so the goal, again, denying the known way of doing things. Look at it all with fresh. Try yourself to be in a neutral place, to just look at the information and feel out what is right for you, versus jumping on a platform or a particular boat or something like that, because then you're not get accidentally hooked into something where you're letting other people do whatever and you're just following along because you in the beginning believed it, and you're not even half paying attention. Now it just must be right. And so this stuff is really what is done. But right now, in this current present moment situation, a lot more information in a more prophetic, we're going to get multiple people saying the same thing. We're going to do whatever, because we're trying to promote an agenda and they're too stupid to know that's what we're doing, type of scenario is going on. So again, you must discern the message and not the messenger. Please understand, the only constant is change. Change is going to occur. It's going to occur within you. Your life in general you're going to see changes throughout your whole life, changes within your belief system. And the truth is the truth until a new truth comes along. And that is what should be happening if you're in a continual expansive mode, not that you stay with the same truth and refuse to leave it, as some things, even religions or whatever would have you do. And so this is really a big deal right now, because what's having to happen is that people's foundational belief systems at this current present moment are cracking, and crumbling because they can no longer sustain a truth that really isn't true anymore. And it's being put in your face that it's really not the truth, and forcing growth in many people in a way that is very uncomfortable for many.
Okay, yeah, I'm being told we need to bring this home now. So,
Okay.
yeah, I can feel something else building there. So like, kind of like the last time. So, I'll move on. The ultimate point that we are trying to make here is this. Some messages, such as the first two that I mentioned, were strictly for us, our friends, and or our family members. These messages simply did not apply to everyone out or anyone outside of our circle. However, the second two messages and the message concept applied to us and anyone else reading and hearing it, and then applying the message and synchronicity to their very own situations. A fortune cookie or horoscope can also be seen as this type of messaging concept, because I personally have seen them both line up to either a known set of synchronicities happening on the particular day in question when the cookie or horoscope was received, or been just the individualized synchronicity itself applying to a question put out to passed on loved ones or benevolent source creator, as well as would line up to any and all people that would happen to view them at the same moment that you, the recipient, did. It applies to both worlds. So please discern whether or not a message is actually meant for you or for someone else or both. Not all messages are for you. If you are always seeing all messages meant for you, you will more than likely miss the actual messages and synchronicities truly meant for you and your personal path and lane. That's the ultimate, basically, message that we wanted to get across with this, and also denying the known and manifesting differently. We're now at that point in the show, whereas there is a galactic contribution. As like with the previous recording, if that particular recording also gets saved, I will also add that in, and I'm hoping that anything that was lost was not truly lost out of that mess. But I will hand this over to who is here. As with the last one, it was Elena. And during the night that we were recording that last one, there was again a storm going. And there was a very violent storm that took place last night on 10/11/21. This is 10/12. So there's always a weather synchronicity that's in there, or a message embedded in that they're using the weather patterns to bring across, their message. And some could also see that kind of like the whole God of Thunder thing, or angels are bringing through messages. And that's not always true. Sometimes it's weather control. That is a show in and of itself. But in this, you wanted me to mention that, okay. In this last time, there were a lot of Mozen soldiers in this neighborhood trying to guard the integrity of the recording. And all the way up until we're recording this again, I was getting one repeated download after another the way this show was going to go, just like the previous incarnation of it. There was an extreme urgency. At first, I thought it was maybe a false synchronicity because of what happened when my computer decided to self-destruct, which it was actually the military that did that, but we won't go completely into that. What was taking place is it was constantly coming in, and I was thinking, oh, somebody's trying to give a distraction. We'll just wait until we see if the previous recording is safe. Don't wait, folks. If it feels genuine and urgent, act on it, and make sure that it is a genuine, heartfelt download that you are getting. And this is exactly what this was. And I was trying to ignore it, thinking it was part of something trying to keep me off track. No, ignoring it was keeping me off track. So this is where we are left. So Elena, and I know there are more of you out there, I can't see you, but the protection is there. So, and it's not quite as tumultuous as the last time we were trying to record this. So, and I do notice that my phone recorder decided to crap out halfway through this. So it stopped recording about 27 minutes into this. So yeah. So
either way, they're both landing in the Akashic. So
yes, they're both landing in the Akashic. But I was also told by Isaac earlier today, that's not good enough. Do it again. I'm like, okay. So why that's not good enough, I have no idea. Maybe it's just him. But there was a sense of urgency nonetheless. So I was being told, bring this home, because meaning come to the conclusion of the idea, get the channeling, a couple of questions, and then we're good. So usually when Elena says that, it's time. Yes, I'll shut up. Okay. She did this last time too, where she looked at me through your eyes and said, hurry up. So okay. Ooh, what's the rush? Okay, through the crystal, please, if you would. Okay, had that. A lot of cotton mouth too, so a lot of stomach upset and everything from this. So hello, everyone. Yes, there is a sense of urgency. We did not know that the incident with the computer would take place. We only knew about militaristic patterns that were taking place in this particular area. We did not know that they would slip in and do what they had done. This is of great apologeticness from all of us in this. This is also, we are very remorseful at the fact that certain things were lawful. But are they? Yes, they do record into the Keswick, but there is an importance of having this out there. This is why there was an urgency that this get out there, because of the fact that this type of platform is so very, very needed as of right now. This is why we are holding together the integrity of this. This is also why we have told him to bring this home. He knew what we meant, or bring the idea home. In this, you will get many messages, and are getting many messages from many different sources. You are seeing some as the ultimate and pinnacle of knowledge, while others as the underdog of knowledge. They are neither and both in this respect. They are neither, because no one is the pinnacle and no one is technically the underdog. You are all learning, both because you are considered to be both in the dualism, either the top dog, like some of your insiders, or the underdog, like some people that are on YouTube and get buried under thousands and thousands of videos. It is important to remember, you are not to do these recordings for that of necessarily fame as the goal, trying to get the ultimate channeling out there. It is not a competition, nor is anyone better or less than anyone else. In this, I also wish to say something that I touched on last time. There are many false messages out there, many false channelings out there. Those are people that are learning currently. Those are people that are currently in that lane. There are also government agents that have taken up that role as far as imposters go, bringing in certain particular beings, such as a multitude of Jesus and Michael channelings, as well as different angel channelings that are out there. Some are ETs, such as myself, that are bringing through under the guise of those names, which I am like himself. I do not necessarily approve of that tactic, but it is what it is. Also, there are beings out there that are posing as angels that are anything but angelic, but they are Orion and all of those in nature. There are also other beings in a multitude of different ETs out there that are attempting to plug their own agendas through the different words and the different phrases and the different ideas and ideologies that are being spoken of in the different channelings. He himself have, I hate to say this, spouted off the ideologies of several dozen races. But this is not necessarily a bad thing, because some of them have indeed genuinely helped other people. This is not to throw him under the bus, but if it comes to an ideology that is being spouted instead of one's perspective that is out there, it is not necessarily the way to go. Yes, we can confirm certain things that are said that we know of as truth, but we will always say it. It is our understanding, not the ultimate in understandings. It is not the ultimate in creation or source creator understanding, because everything is benevolent source creator, everything is neutral creator. And there is also a, as he likes to call it, a photocopy, or as dear Moses likes to say, a photocopy of source creation. It is all one. So you see, source creator is essentially neutral, and you are pulling off of the benevolent forces of that energy to bring about a certain manifestation and bringing in a certain message. This is what I also wanted to bring through. Please be careful of what messages you are blocking within your own mind, because you want a particular synchronicity. Just like some people believe, also, of course, the coins being dropped are, of course, his grandfather that was doing this, but it doesn't mean it's always your dead relative. 99% of the time, it is an elemental. In his case, and in some other people's cases, it has been their passed on loved one that is either associated with an elemental or is having an elemental doing it. The elementals, such as gnomes and fairies, and beings such as this, and leprechauns as well, also deal in those types of synchronicities. They will continue to leave certain coins out, and there are also malevolent beings that will also lead you into a distraction with those too. Sometimes in numerology as well, such as using the numbers on the coins to calculate numerology. He himself and his mother have done this. This is actually a perfectly good way of doing this, but at the same time, it can be easily become an OCD distraction. We are not dumping again on anyone that does this, but it leads you to a certain message, but it also can lead you into an OCD pattern that can lead you away from a particular message. Just like with your radio, for instance, certain songs can line up to give you a message that some being, any being anywhere, can actually use to give you a synchronistic message across several song titles, words, and different ideas of different songs forming a sentence. Both positive and negative, and also neutral, can use these synchronicities. Just like he himself saw one that it was a darker being basically giving him a finger through different song titles and words. It was essentially saying F you. Now, good people can bring across synchronicities, just like the music he has heard that lined up to getting some of his SSP memories back. Different, as well as some of the number synchronicities associated with the number 8. This meant specifically for him because of the year 1988, and also some of the numerological type synchronicities regarding yourselves with that was slightly different. But it could easily go overboard into a distraction. It must remain here. You must get whatever message you have from that, or it will go off the side of the cliff. You are correct completely about the 11, 11, 22, 22, 33, 33, and 44, 44. All of those are distractions. Nothing more, except if other beings such as myself use those to get your attention, or it is being used as a starting point, whether it's positive or negative, a starting point for moving forward, a stepping stone for moving forward. I may sound like I'm moving quickly because I am slightly, but I can go into a couple of questions.
So just to go back real quick, because you reminded me that we did talk about a little bit more the synchronicities on the radio and how they could potentially be used in a way not for your highest good. The best one I think I came up with last time, especially I'm going to say for females. I know males are the same way, but females are a little, in general, more emotional, so they take it in a little bit differently. Happens to be when you had a fight with somebody and you're getting in your car, you're going to work in the morning, and it's nothing but breakup songs. So I think I bring that up because when you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We talked about the breakup songs. So, again, how does that make you feel? For me, sometimes when crap like that's happening, and I know it's either someone saying fuck you to me, or they're trying to perpetuate something. Mm-hmm. The songs don't necessarily cheer me on to do something. They actually make me a little bit sick, and then I'm telling everybody out there that's a part of this, where to go. But so again, it's about discerning what's going on to decide whether or not it is actually relevant or trying to steer you a certain place. And they've been pretty, I think one of the things that you did mention last time in this particular subject matter is they're actually pretty darn successful maneuvering people into an area that is really not good for them with these types of tactics. And thus now, in this current present moment, even through all of this craziness, it's really the time that you really must brush off real good discernment skills. So I want to, I don't remember from last time, honestly, how much this was discussed, but I am going to turn it over to you because I feel that you really do need to also, from your perspective, bring up discernment skills or examples or anything that you have to help people in this.
Yes, that breakup song one is used quite often, I might say, and it's fallen for quite often. People will say, oh, that's a synchronicity from God or my relatives or guides or whomever, whichever religious belief you go along with, it will then be covered as a synchronicity. But also the other one are those online tarot card readings that sometimes they can be very good. But say if you were in a relationship and you were having hard times, and then you got online to get a reading, and it was basically telling you to break up with the person. That could be one of two things: be the actual synchronicity because you're in some kind of abusive scenario, or B, you are in a perfectly good relationship and something is trying to get you out of it by causing some havoc, or by planting a seed that did not need to be planted, as he said further up in the scripting here. This, for the episode, this is something we see quite often. You yourself encountered this many years ago with an online tarot reading. Now, this is where certain discerning must take place. Yes, tarot readings are supposed to be the reflection of that highest part of yourself, trying to give you a message back. But what if there were other telepathy involved? And what if there was also AI involved in the synchronicity that they're trying to generate to get you either to break up with something, not accept that job that you want, or rely too much on that medium? Yes, it is a perfectly good medium, but it also can be like the mirror in Harry Potter, where Dumbledore told Harry Potter many men had stared into that mirror and waited for something to happen. It was always a reflection of themselves, and it would reflect more of that waiting, you see. Sometimes it can reflect that and nothing more. It's a great medium if it is used correctly, but if it is abused and is relied upon too much, except within those times of needing a certain message, it can be bad. But also needing a certain message and not necessarily opening yourself to receiving one can also be the blockage, you see. Needing a message instead of receiving one, and I can't emphasize that enough. Opening yourself up to receiving that from your, what you call your higher self or your oversoul or benevolent beings. Instead, some people need the message instead of allowing the message. And that's also another form of blockage that is out there. This is something that we also had to get out as of this moment in time.
So it is interesting you say that, let's, I think, speak a little bit more that these times really are trying. Everything is, for a lot of people, a lot of things are breaking apart right now. It really is, for some people, a scary time, be it they're losing their job, they're potentially losing their job, their families' behaviors are changing and people's insecurities are showing all over the place. And again, as we were saying earlier, beings being willing to come in, not necessarily all benevolent, because there's so many people now in need of what they perceive as some benevolent higher force coming in because they're feeling so lost right now and not knowing the next step to take or what to do, that they are, in a sense, and again, I understand where this is coming from. I'm just trying to describe, they are willing to now turn over decisions to somebody else that they feel is better suited to make decisions for their own life rather than themselves. And that really isn't a good place to be. Unfortunately, it goes along with the sign, Jesus take the wheel. It goes along with these kinds of things that some have been kind of put there, out there for you to believe that that really is the way it should be in the end. but it's not. And so people have been, in a sense, programmed to be, when they're stressed to a certain level, that they are willing to turn over their free will to allow someone else to do it. That's one of the, let's call it, big picture strategies that's now going on to all the people of the world. How are we going to make them all come to their knees to the point where they don't care, as long as somebody else makes a decision that makes them feel halfway secure, I'll go along with anything. And that really is what's going on right now when you say they need a sign. And so the signs are going to come to fill that need for that purpose, which is not for your highest good, but is for someone else.
Yes, indeed. What is going on in your political arena and structures right now is trying to fill a need that they created. You see, they knew that if they badgered people enough and compressed them enough, there would be a need that they would rescue and come in to fill. Be the rescuer, be the fireman, that is the arsonist, as he likes to say, or the policeman, that is the criminal. You see, this is the need that they are filling, because people need a savior. They need messages, benevolent or otherwise. They need, and they need and need and need, instead of allowing the natural flow to take place and not allowing these other governmental bodies to not do this to them. See, this is what is going on right now. We know there's a lot of control taking place. We know there's a lot of false messages and false, what people think is intuition coming into their heads, but it is actually a form of mind control with your technology that is taking place, and other ETs that are out there trying to perpetuate their messages and agenda. But it is most important to use your own intuition and your own heart space when it comes to these. How does it feel to you, you see, in these types of scenarios? This is also something we must bring to a conclusion at the moment, because the conduit is actually becoming more and more shaky, and it is going to allow for more blowback if this continues. So we must close the conduit at the moment. But we are, as me, Elena, my significant other, Vesa, and her brother, Vask, are always around, as are some of the Mozen and other forces that are within in the ethers, that can actually see and hear what goes on here in certain levels of control and certain levels of blowback and certain levels of despondentness that are happening all over the country. And I will say, and all over the planet, but I will say, in those scenarios where that is taking place, just know who you truly are, your own soul. And if something is taking control of you that is not you, just make sure that it is not fed, and that if you feel strange, just know that something may be there that is not you, even though that is a message that I'm giving right now, and you can either take that to heart or not. I'm just saying, please discern, and just know that any ill wills that are being put out there by people that it would normally be, that is not necessarily being judged over or being looked down upon, but we are actually more despondent over the beings that are doing and committing these particular atrocities out there with messages, or with those of with bouts of insanity based on technologies and based on telepathic intrusions. This is where we must conclude it. Thank you. All right. Ooh. They're all there. I just can't really see them all. And they are, so there are beings always around, even if you do not save them in some form or another. And I forget that at times myself. But you know, because if I don't sense it, I know there's things that are beyond even my range. Even though I have a slightly broader range than others, I think, oh, I'm supposed to be able to see this because, but that's where I'm at personally. So because I have this broad range, it doesn't mean I have the broadest range. So frequencies and also discernment apparently at times. I won't go into that, but I will also go into the last affirmation and blessing. This is going to be very strange. My grandmother actually channeled this. This was back in at the beginning of August, I believe. It was around the 12th of August, if I'm not too mistaken, when I wrote this, or when this was channeled. And it's actually, I can give you an exact date. Yeah, the 12th of August. So, all right. I'm glad I timestamped that. Okay. Affirmation and blessing. To the rich in heart, you are far more blessed than those of wealth and money. But as you see and know yourself, your abundance of wealth and money follow the suit of self-knowing, as well as follow the suit of self-worth. Or as our friend James would always say, what are you worth? Your signs, your life, your love, your abundance, and your strength are your very own and not the property of others. Would you cross a line that's strictly stated that you should not? Like a barbed wire fence with a no trespassing sign hooked on it? Your lane must honor those signs meant for others, and your lane must honor those signs meant for you. Your exit is coming, but not as a sign of death. Your lane demands nothing less than love, compassion, adventure, and learning, as well as well-being of abundance and livelihood. This message is for him here, but also is for you to ponder and to understand. I'm humbled in the moment, but I am also proud when the moment arises to meet a challenge head on. Whether or not it is liked is irrelevant. Your exit is coming, so watch for the road signs. Watch for the blue birds and watch for the stores that mark the lot with an X. I have no idea what that means, folks. I know the blue birds one. That was my grandmother's synchronicity. Not in doom or gloom, but in change and wonderment. That is all for now. Thank you all. Thank you, Chris. Love you always and forever. So does your great grandmother and your grandfather, along with your aunt and uncle, including those that you have not met in this life or do not remember it all because you were too young. And that was my grandmother, Vivian Sainovich, that came through at the time that this was channeled. Folks, I don't know what the hell the lot with the mark and the X thing means, and I said this in the previous recording. This is obviously something that has some hidden synchronicities in there. I'm not going to go looking for this because I could end up creating it all over the damn place. You know, I'd be going, there it is, there it is, there it is. No, that is not the intention right there. That is something obviously she wanted to wanted that added in, and they're saying add that particular idea in there. The blue birds, though, became her synchronicity after she passed away when I was in North Carolina with Joanna. And but then I'm guessing this was Isaac or a forest person that decided to have one of the bluebirds stand on her fence, do the whole crane thing like the Karate Kid and poop all over the fence. That was probably Isaac or some joking elemental doing that. My grandmother probably would not have done that. So I want to show that distinguishment there. Since it was a bluebird, my mother and I started to associate with my grandmother. That was obviously not my grandmother that did that. So I wanted to add that in. There was a difference between what was her bringing in a bluebird, which she always had a picture of on a vase. It was an angry looking bluebird that was like that. So it was always her favorite picture. So that one was a synchronicity. The pooping one on the fence was not her. So I just want to make that distinct. All right. And I believe we are done with tonight's episode. Take 2 on messages for one or for all. So I thank you all for watching this episode, one that apparently was very urgently needed to come out. We will find out in the days to come why this is so urgent. If you feel there is an urgency that you must put a comment underneath associated with this episode that has a discerning nature on whatever synchronicity has come through in messages that have come through, please let us know in the comments below. So thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye now.
Hello. This goes under the messages category. I truly believe it is false messages. There's also messages of false apocalyptic type junk that's taking place right now. That people are getting pumped into their head. beforehand felt aggressive, very like I was dying inside before this happened. This goes under that whole demonic set of details. As I was saying before in a different video, I was in a future time frame where there was a domed city / base, and there was an experiment being done where men and women were in separate areas that could only come together to exchange genetic material. I mean, not even through sex. It was like they had to exchange it for procreation or scientific means. And they couldn't talk to one another. And they were separated on two sides of this domed base. And it was one I was interacting with was in Florida, and one was here in Arizona. I could tell by the rocks of the Grand Canyon, and also the rocks of Sedona and everything. It was around in this area between Grand Canyon and Sedona. And what it looked like was it was a biodome. You could see outside and everything. You just couldn't go outside. People weren't allowed in nature. And the only thing that you could do for sex would be more like masturbation or something like that. It wasn't allowed. And you weren't allowed privacy. I was in a bathroom or shower area where I had to keep shooing people out of an area. And they're like, well, no, these are the rules. We have to follow them. And they wouldn't quit going into where I was. And this goes into another dream about, I've told you, where sex is interrupted sometimes by different beings. Like a being will take the form, like one took the form of Joanna, one took the form of another woman, an old person, a group of people. And I believe I've done a recording on this before, but what happened in that one was whereas the being that was impersonating Joanna then went away, saw a darkened figure that was a naked other lady, and several figures tried to interrupt the private time. And I finally got fed up and started beating up on this older man looking one, and it ended up being the demon. The whole situation was the demon. People that were coming in to see if the old man was okay, they were all the same demonic force. And in this dream, it was the same way, where they would come in. It's like, no, go away. So I knew there was a demonic force feeding me a line about that apocalyptic future. And it was, people were just acceptant of it. And to any other channeler, sorry guys, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I really am not. But you got to be careful what information you put out there. This was somebody trying to co-create that future where people were living in these domed cities, not allowed to interact correctly, and being put under a series of domed experiments like the vaults in the Fallout series. Very similar. And very similar to when I saw a dream set, whereas I was somebody who was in an apocalyptic future as well, where people had been abducted on the street, put into these camps, and then the descendant lineage thought the world had ended. It was Nazis that had done this. And this was actually historically proven that the Nazis had attempted this before the end of the Second World War. And some people not that long ago had found some descendants of some of these people that were in some mountains in Russia that thought the world had ended. And they had run out of food and supplies. The Nazis weren't there to provide the supplies anymore. So they had run out. They had generations of supplies. And they had run out. And some hikers found them. And they were surprised the world hadn't ended. This was something very similar. But it was quite a ways into the future. This was some demonic force attempting to get me to go, oh my God, this is the future. Like, why would I fall for that? So channelers, please don't fall for these things. I know you've seen these in books that people would live in domed cities in the future, and environmental resources would be scarce. People weren't allowed to go into nature because they thought they corrupted, or there would be flying cities in the future where people weren't allowed to go into nature and they were in servitude to a workforce. None of these timelines are coming to pass. Even that one I just mentioned was in my book From the Fault of the Lifting, where people were in servitude underneath a black pyramid, which was actually the tip of a flying city. I didn't know that when I wrote the book. And they saw work schedules on boards and everything. They weren't allowed to socialize, nothing. These things are false futures, folks. False messages. Any of these apocalyptic future type junk, please do not spout it. Please. Other than the fact that it's fake. This goes with the scamdemic stuff. Messages about this. If you're putting message about that saying, oh, COVID is so horrible, please don't do that. I know if you've had somebody pass away as a result of this, or what you believe as a result of this, please do not get on the internet and start talking about it. Please. Do not do that. As I've said in other recordings, mourn in silence. With friends and everything, of course, but silence from the media and social media. We don't need that propaganda spreading around anymore. Just like somebody I saw on the news that got on the news, that relative had died, supposedly of COVID, and they went on and went, oh my God, it's so dangerous, please, you just have to wear a mask, please. No, don't do that. Don't do it. Think, please. Do not do that. I feel compassion for you, but you're harming other people when you participate in the propaganda like that. So please don't do that. And channelers, please do not spread these messages about these weird apocalyptic futures. No, both of these things are essentially the same. The COVID scamdemic and this are essentially the same. Zip it. If this comes to you, if you have to say it on the internet like I'm doing now, please, for the love of God, say that it's fake. And say that it is a false timeline. What was even weirder in that false timeline is there was this large Chinese guy that came out when I started getting everybody to try to resist it. This big fat Chinese guy came out that was naked, and everybody was in shock and awe at this person, like he was being worshipped as a deity. And also in Japanese myth and lore, there was a demon type that was a fat, slovenly person that was carried around by concubines and servants that would eat children. So that was in Japanese mythology. There's something similar in Chinese. Also, this goes along the line with some of the Buddha type of stuff. There was in Japan, Buddha, wasn't really considered this. He was a huge deal, but he was seen more as a regular person. But he also had jinn and such surrounding him in China and other Buddhist type religious countries. He's seen as more of a deity. And I believe this was also tied into some false metaphysical beliefs that were tied into Buddhism. That I believe that I'm starting to lean more towards that some of these holy figures either didn't exist or they were part of some satanic agenda. And there are good beliefs within all of these religious beliefs. There's good philosophies, but I believe this was like a bastardization or a weaponization of what Buddhism was supposed to be. But I believe there was also some satanic thread that wove its way into a lot of these beliefs, even in the past. If you look back far enough, not that it's there, but it has too many fantastical things surrounding it. Not that magic doesn't exist, but it was over embellished in a lot of cases. Not to slam any of these the good figures in history, but this figure was like this naked, like big Buddha type figure, but he had hair, and everybody was in awe of him. Whenever anybody broke the rules, this figure would appear. and try to dress everybody down just by standing there and standing present. Not by saying anything, just by being present. So therefore you have to be present in the now, and present and know yourself. And take that space back. Mentally, physically, spiritually. And don't believe, channelers again, don't believe these apocalyptic messages. People believing in the COVID thing on TV. Please take it with a grain of salt. That's all I'm asking. So, this goes on to the messages show. And you can tell it's early in the morning. This is the beginning before another psychic fair, like the other video. So, it is 5:35 a.m. Sunday, October 3rd, 2021. Thank you. Hello. This is a video I'm doing that is post-computer apocalypse. And that may sound funny to some of you, but it was not necessarily funny to me when that happened. So, when the computer got messed up. So, what I'm doing here is recording a continuation of something that actually got saved. It was on the phone. The message you just heard about that post-apocalyptic future with people that weren't even allowed to, men and women weren't allowed to interact. This one is going along the lines of that. Sorry, I gotta keep moving. It's freezing out here for whatever reason. This future was quite weird, where everybody was told that there were cannibals walking the streets, like zombies, but crazy people, or more like the Reavers on Firefly. Sorry, I gotta get into the sun. It's freezing out here. And people were told to go to local churches, local gathering places, into locked buildings that already had locks on the buildings, already had reinforced doors, like big metal doors that dropped into place. Very much like that other recording I did on the post-apocalyptic future of the Target store that had the blast door that fell. There were just these main gathering places. It was also like Walmarts, Targets, Lowe's, Home Depots that are connected to government facilities. And people were made to go to these. And what was weird about this was people were made to change their names. Joanna couldn't use Joanna anymore, or Jody. I couldn't use Christopher or Chris anymore. And we were all reassigned names, and they were all Christian names, even though technically Christopher is. It's one that you didn't have before. If it was some complex name, it was dumbed down very much like Ellis Island. And that was very, very odd. I even wandered into a different building. I managed to get to a different building and saw the pieces of paper where people were filling out these notes, thanking these missionaries for helping everybody out from this disaster. And I went and looked at some of these notes where people had just been following these churches and these preordained, let's just say, people, or plants is what they were, to try to get people to follow the religious doctrine more and more and more. Very similar to Handmaid's Tale, but not quite like that. It's like a religious order took over sort of thing, where it was a pre-planned thing that all people eventually would have to kind of convert over, or I'm assuming what happened to the other people is they died or got killed. So I went snooping. And one of them said, "Oh, you were supposed to have an assigned name. What's your assigned name? I'll look it up in the records." And I just kept saying, I don't know. I was playing dumb. And they're like, "Oh, no, you're not supposed to do that. No." They weren't dumb. They knew when somebody was faking it. And I tried questioning people around to see if they would question the authority. They wouldn't. Like, oh no, everything's perfect now. We don't have any differences. There's no fighting. No, there's nothing to worry about. And this is very similar, like I said, to the premise of Handmaid's Tale. One of the reasons why I stopped watching that show, it was more of a trigger. And what I'm getting at by this is the false apocalyptic messages that are coming through, and people that are believing so strongly in the apocalypse that they're like, oh yeah, we just have to get this out of the way. Like you've heard Joanna and I say, we just have to get this out of the way, and then we'll have the 1,000 years of peace. It's so ingrained in some of these religious people, they can't see past it. Just like with some of the New Agers and some of the UFO crowd. They believe so strongly that if there's going to be a fake alien invasion, it's like, okay, just get it over with, get the culling over with, so that we can move forward. Not even ever thinking that you don't have to have any of these things at all. Not even thinking that you don't need a culling. You know, if the Earth is overpopulated, you have space colonies. It's just like that old Star Trek episode. It was about a planet called Gideon, where Kirk went there. It was an overpopulated planet. Even the leaders wouldn't let him beam down. And they abducted him and attempted to create a virus from his own human DNA to infect their population and cull it down because the planet was so populated. But yet they had religious beliefs in there that forbade them from ever forming colonies in space, even though they were technologically advanced enough to do it. The indoctrination was so strong they wouldn't go against it. And this is also what I'm getting at. Also, there's another recording I will put on here, hoping that it wasn't lost in the computer apocalypse. I was getting ready to actually edit it into this when the computer went down. So I'll just repeat what happened. This was a while back, and I was in a mock village that looked like what I thought was like Japanese or Chinese buildings, and I was correct at the time. Again, married couples weren't even allowed to be together. Men and women had to be in separate buildings, and there was only small visitation times. And there was always a Chinese facilitator that would come out and say, okay, visitation time is over. You got to go back to your areas. No exceptions. And it was a lady. Just like I saw Joanna, she was all mentally broken. And sitting at a booth, which was like an old restaurant or something. And this Chinese lady was sitting there as I was trying to snap Joanna out of it. And this lady kept smiling at me creepishly. She'd smile like creepishly at both of us. And outside, some people started to go crazy, and they shot him down. What it was a Chinese re-education camp. And, it was in China, so if you had escaped, where would you go? You wouldn't know the terrain. It's like people were abducted from here, and their lives were replaced and put in one of those camps. And, can that happen? Oh, yeah. But does it and has it? Yeah. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the fact that some of these are part of that see, you can't even talk. Part of that false post-apocalyptic future. Like, oh, there's no way out of this. Oh, the Chinese are just going to do this. It's just part of prophecy. And it's been said in prophetical books, too. Like, be careful about China, all this other stuff. Creating them as the next boogeyman. I'm not saying they're not guilty of anything. In fact, they're guilty of atrocities beyond imagining. But at the on the same note, you don't want to co-create a post-apocalyptic future. It's like, okay, get the war with China over, just like in now see, I'm being mind wiped. Just like in the Fallout series with China. There are other videos I actually did on this that are now wiped, but that's why I'm conglomerating it into this. Just put out there that the files can be saved, because I don't remember all of it. But anyway, some things just had to go straight into the Akashic, the benevolent Akashic. But anyway, my point is, false apocalyptic messages, whether it's religious or political, are rampant right now. And I think this is one of the reasons the computer got wiped, is because I was talking about this. But channelers, you have to discern whether something is right or not. You must do this. And if it is a post-apocalyptic thing, always say that it is a false future. And you may not have the compulsion to do this, but I'm saying please do this. It was just like a channeling I saw of a lady who had a dream of, some terrorists are going to blow up this bridge, and she was in a panic and had to call the cops. Please don't do this. And then nothing happened. That's because whatever quote-unquote guide was talking to her, which looked like a Muslim guy, which I think, or Muslim or Persian guy, which I believe was part of that darker Cassiopeian group, that are Persian looking, Persian and Muslim looking, from Cassiopeia, the ones that aided the Nazis. This is something that is also occurring. People are just getting the compulsion. I had this dream, this person was murdered, and I had to call the cops. I had to do something. Please don't. Leave it rest. Leave it be. Chances are they'll think you did something anyway if you got a detail right. And also, they have to follow every lead you give them. They must do it. It's protocol. So please do not do that. Keep it to yourself. Write it down. Record it. Do whatever you feel you have to do other than calling the police. I don't care if it's over something famous, anything, because they will waste their time coming to you to talk to you. And they will waste their time putting manpower towards something that may or may not occur. And it could be a being that is trying to distract you. So, with that said, this lady, if she's hearing me, I'm not going to name the town or name who she is or anything. It was just on a show we were seeing. It's like, lady, please don't do things like that. And to any psychic, other than ones that they know are true psychics and true, remote viewers and stuff like that are working with the police already. If you're doing this, if you're thinking, I have a moral obligation to tell them, do it in silence. I'm sorry. Do a recording after the fact, after the whole thing is finished. Do a recording. Report what you are seeing. You even thinking about it at the time of it is putting something in the Akashic and changing more than you're realizing on the energetic level. Benevolent Akashic, once you plant it in there, it changes the dynamic of something in the future. That's why it was meant to be seen and heard. Nothing more. Except for those that it's their lane to carry it further. So it's not all of you that are meant to do this. Some of those are false just so it disrupts something. You become a disruptor agent at that point. So do not get involved. And I have to be very blunt on this because years ago there was a psychic that had a dream of somebody being murdered. It was in the house next door to him. He was just picking up on it. And the energy and the story within the Akashic, benevolent Akashic, I keep forgetting to do that, and the benevolent Akashic. Well, then he reported to the cops, and they hunted him down and arrested him, thought he did it, because he had too many details. He was that accurate. And they, instead of going after the real criminal, they went after him, because that's how one-tracked they can be. Or they were at that time. And then that discouraged him from ever doing it again, thinking that he was now going against God. He had been punished for something some magic that he had tapped into, and now he went back to Catholicism and Christianity. and he was loyal to Jesus, and that was that at that point. But I'm just saying, if you get something like that, write it down, record it like what I'm doing now, log it, and put it away. You're just making it harder on the rest of us. I'm sorry to be that blunt. But then the rest of us are put under scrutiny. So keep it to yourself. But if you have to post it online eventually, later on, after something occurs, or if it occurs. It's like I got a lot of predictions that never came true. That's another one. There's like these false predictions, and you don't know what timeline you're sitting in when you get a certain prediction. That timeline could change. And now you've given a prediction that won't happen, or you've planted the seed for co-creating that future. So you got to be careful, which means 99.99% of the time you're not saying anything to the public or law enforcement of any kind. So you keep it shut, except if your true heart space and your true intuition is telling you to post it or tell you to do something. But please do not get a hold of the authorities saying, "Oh my God, this bridge is going to be blown up. Oh my God, this thing is going to happen, or this disaster is going to happen. I saw the Chinese taking over this country." Yes, certain things are occurring in the background, like China buying California, Oregon, and Washington. The Germans and the Chinese and the Americans in Alaska working together. Yeah, those are all true. But you co-creating a war like that just expedites it faster, especially if it's en masse. And if you're tapping into a certain energy stream of something that, like maybe some future time core or some other alien race agenda that they're trying to put in play, that they're putting telepathically out there, you've just now become an agent for that agenda. And that is a no-no. So you have to discern whether this is something you have to put out there or not. You have to discern what messages are from the heart space coming through now a true download and with your intuition discern, or ones that are being forced for someone else's agenda. This is something that is very crucial right now, and this is also one of the reasons I think that my computer got nailed. Because this is something that a major weapon they are using right now. So I'll look for any of the old recordings that I may have backed up that belong in this category. If not, you're just going to be seeing the ones here with my face on it. So I believe I got the point out regardless. So it is 7:39 a.m. on Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. Thank you.
Well, here comes another one. This is more of a dark one. Had the light one and then now the dark one. It was set when I was 50. And we were in housing complexes that look very much like they do in Japan, kind of like boxes. But they were apartment buildings. Nobody could go beyond the territory of the cities that these were made out of. And you had to actually be married to be with a partner. They didn't acknowledge anything but marriage, and anything that was registerable. And they didn't allow gay relationships or anything like that. They didn't acknowledge any of that. And this was another dystopian timeline that I saw. I don't acknowledge it as real. I'm just saying that where it was set and what happened. And if anybody tried to go on a quote-unquote road trip past a certain point, their car was stopped, they were detained, and that was that. They couldn't go beyond these, well, they were like reservations, but they were whole cities like the size of like New York City. They had everything, all supplies, but people were fully dependent on whether those supplies came in. And also, everything had to be registered. Everything you did had to be registered and approved of by the state or the country. every action had to be registered. How long were you going to be there? What were you doing? For how long were you doing it? Even relationships were that way. And I see some aspects of that starting already this year. Like our fares now have to be registered with the federal government. That's never happened before. There's no need for that at all. You have to apply for a permit and everything. That's why one of our fairs had to cancel. If they don't approve it, you don't have it. So that's a start of that. See, this was only set 9 years from now. What could they accomplish in 9 years if people left that unchecked? I already grounded this in the Benevolent Earthly and Galactic Akeshas before I did this. But I'll do it again. I now ground this information into the true Benevolent Earthly Akesha and the true Benevolent Galactic Akeshas as of this moment in time. Knowing this will determine that it is dissolved. Mirror across time and space were appropriated as forever so in all multiple sessions and expressions. And I also determine under the aforementioned that this is neither here nor there. It is in complete limbo. Mirror across time and space were appropriated as forever so in all multiple sessions and expressions. But what happened was, they had everything. They just picked certain cities, essentially. Like say New York, for instance, or L.A., or Houston, or Austin, or something like that, or Lincoln, or Seattle. That you could do whatever, you just couldn't leave there. And nobody went. There wasn't like an extinction event. It was just more control. And yeah, Joanna was much older. I was much older. And even couples, like I said, that weren't married weren't allowed to even be in the same building. They had to be one per. And it was horrible. So if anybody's actually listening to this recording, don't let these timelines play out. Don't be so capitulant with even little things. Fight it, but do it in a peaceful way. Don't do it in a violent way. If it got to that stage, you wouldn't be able to have a violent revolution anyway. The idea is not to let it happen to begin with. Even the beginnings of it, like I just said. Mask thing too. Even to keep the peace, so to speak. Nobody's going to violently jump you if you walk into a store without it on. Never heard of it happening, except by other members of the public. So, I'll end this one here. 8:44 a.m. on Wednesday, January 13th, 2020. Thank you. All right. This is going to be a bit of a strange one. This goes along in line with the government and local governments coming up with these weird distractions such as COVID and, of course, the race wars and everything. Another thing that they would make up. And I feel this is very, very important because I'm getting a major download to this. I even had to cancel my session as of this morning because of the magnitude of this. And I am sorry for who I usually have to do this to. But this these magnitude of downloads that are coming in also have to take some kind of precedence as well, and we have to balance this in.
And I don't always know it's going to happen until it happens. Dream last night. This goes along with it. Then I'll explain. The dream is where I was in a black military uniform. I was a man in my 60s. And I was walking with two 17 or 18-year-olds. And we were walking back into a normal neighborhood, normal stores. It was more of a commercial district borderlining a residential. And they were just amazed. It's like they had never seen this before. And we walked up to a Target store. And as we were walking up to the store, were these big like blast marks in the pavement. And there were remains of people around. Skeletal forms that had been there a while. There was even something burning underground in one area. That seems to be a common theme, something burning underground. But anyway, we were approaching this store and they're like, wow, we've never seen this before. We've never experienced this. It's like, how do you not know what a store is? How do you not know what a commercial district was? And we walked, and we went up to this Target store where the edges of the sidewalk, imagine a Target parking lot. Ironically, Target. And I was working with a friend of ours in New York on the Target symbol not too long ago, that it was related to Cabal, along with Walmart, all of them. Yes, I am throwing all of you guys under the bus because you're participating in this scam even as we speak. So, walked up to the store where all these like the sidewalk along the store and everything was all crumbled except in parts. We were walking and stepping around the crumbled pieces. And we opened managed to hang on just a second. Sorry, big distraction there. Somebody revving their motor extra loud. That's the kind of stuff that happens when something important is being spoken about. See, there we go again. These are things that normally do not take place here. Anyway, pried the door open. And it was a normal Target door, with the automatic door, but it wasn't powered. And inside the front area, where they'd have the carts and stuff like that. You go to Walmart, they have a cart and where the greeter would be and all this other stuff. But this was the area for Target where they would have the carts, and those were still there. But there was a huge set of blast doors that had dropped in front of the entryway into the store, and they were totally sealed. And there was a computer there monitoring that. And the AI that was running this refused to open the doors. It was an audible AI, just like you hear on Star Trek, where you would talk to the computer. And would refuse to let us in. We tried to rewire it and do all this other stuff, and it wanted to kill us and warned us not to tamper with it. Said it must keep the blast doors closed. And I remember getting severely agitated with this AI. But my point about this is that in an area like, say, Prescott Valley or Prescott or any normal neighborhood, say these government people would pull another scam, say something worse than COVID. Say that, oh, there's radiation in an area, you can't go back there. And you have no proof, but yet you're still spouting off all of this. And they have no real proof for the stuff they're doing now. They have no authority to enforce any of it. Hardly any of it. But there would still be people that went along with it. It's like, okay, we're going to go now. We're just going to abandon our homes all our lives and just go. But yet there are people that would hold out. And those were the remains I saw. Those were the people that decided that they weren't going to budge. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying that's a very good thing. That's an honorable thing. I'm just saying, if you don't say no now, these are the kinds of things you're allowing them to do. You are allowing them to continually go down further down this rabbit hole, and in a bad way. If you don't say no now, you are saying yes now to all of that. You cannot be sheep. And yes, you're hearing me say this. I'm not saying fight. I'm not saying, be a martyr. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying you have to look at the laws more closely. They're only disobeying the laws because you're letting them. You have to call them out on their own laws. You must do this. Or else the result is what I just described. And this looked like it was a long time from now. This looked like it was like 50 years from now. And it was a new generation that didn't know of any of it. And if that were to happen, and they didn't know anything of the previous history, they're completely manipulatable. You must know your history so it doesn't repeat. That's one of the ultimate goals here, folks. They want people that know nothing about any of it. You have to do your research. Do it and do it thoroughly. Don't just say yes to things. Don't just consent. Please. This time is crucial right now. And it must be questioned. Things must be questioned. Ask questions. Think. Surrender to the proper flow of your creativity. Be who you're supposed to be. Don't just go along with what other people want. But do research. Look into things. And if a local authority tells you, oh no, you have to do this, have to do that, make them prove it. They must prove it. And under what legal authority can they do that to you? And as we speak, Joanne is doing the proper research. But we've been talking about this since yesterday. And this is the show we're doing. It's about this. This is the download that we're getting. Her in her own way, and mine in mine. So again, I do apologize to anybody that I've had to cancel sessions on the past week. The download of this magnitude had to take priority. And this was more of a warning from someone that you gotta get your shit together. You gotta start noticing things. But you also can't force those that are asleep, and I'm saying that in quotes. I'm not denigrating another part of the population. You gotta also stop trying to jam things down other people's throats or up their butt. That's going to make it worse too, because it's going to cause a division. But still, you have to do research and get people to asking the right questions and start questioning the reality around them. By raising your own vibration, doing all that we've said before 100 times, it's still all true, but also doing the proper research on top of it. You must, because that scenario was another one of those apocalyptic layers that apparently is trying to line up to this one and connect somewhere. Don't let it connect. Do the right research. And within the episode that this is edited into, we will have explained more into that. But this is the download I got, and it was very similar to one I got years ago about something they were planning. I believe this is the same event that I'm seeing, that I saw then, back in, it was like 2016, I believe, or 15, whereas they allowed the surface population to cull, and then people were wondering what was going on, and they had to come straight into their loving arms. No. And they were designated into areas of land, kind of like reservations, and not allowed to have a life. You have a choice to have a life right now. Do it. Be creative, become your creativity, do whatever it is, and become whatever it is that you are supposed to become. But do not allow these shenanigans to continue either. Co-create them out of existence, do the proper research, and call these people out. Not to start a war, but call them out. Don't just do as you're told. But do it peacefully. The information is what will take them down in this instance. And the energy. This is a very co-creative time, the year of 2020, open vision or clear vision, 2020 vision. Remember that. You're seeing their entire hand, even in dreams. If anybody else has had dreams and visions like this, you can put it in the comments below this video and see if it compares to this. But I'm not sure what year this was, but this was like this is the desired outcome, a following generation that has no clue what came before it. Just like in the book series, I believe it's called Childhood's End, where it was a new generation that these reptilian creatures had manipulated, and they didn't know what had come before. So they could present themselves as they looked, but more like deities, because people didn't know that they had existed in history, and that's the end game here, folks. More control, but back to the beginning and resetting it before anybody knew anything. But they can't, because the timelines are changing. But you have to change with them. They're resetting back to an earlier period, but in a good way. You have to go with this flow. That's a must. So, to sum up, be yourself, become your creativity and passion, do research, say no, but don't raise up arms. And as much as it pains me to say this, there is no such thing as awake and asleep. Yes, there are ignorant people, and there are people that are more knowledgeable. The more you try to force awaken people, the worse it gets. You can't awaken people by putting the proper information and whatnot out there, and the proper energy grounding into the benevolent earthly Akesh and the benevolent galactic Akeshics at that moment in time and in this moment in time. Do that, and you will start to see more and more people take the right side. Or should I say wake up in quotes. You'll start to see it happen more and more. But it has to be done that way and not for and against. As much as I'm anti-mask and as much as I'm anti, what I perceive as stupid, this other way is the way to do it. So, okay, folks, I'm going to end this recording here. It is 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. Thank you.